Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Zone Blitz. As always, I'm Vince Miller, joined by my co-host Ashton Overholt. Ashton, last Saturday was the first Saturday in a long time we had no football. The previous couple weeks, we at least had NFL football, even though it wasn't quite the same. It was still football. How did you make it through your Saturday?
Well, yeah. I mean, thank goodness that I had some other things to do. I was playing like in a volleyball tournament, so like didn't have to think about it too much. But it's tough, man. The off season's tough. Like, yeah, for those of us that just live and die with it. I don't know how much of the NFL playoffs you've watched. This is kind of the first that I've really paid attention to NFL football. Like just kind of the last week, and like the quality. Like it's good. NFL players are fantastic, but there's not for me, and I'm speaking purely for me, but there's not the pageantry. Like there's not like the living and dying with every single play, and the fans aren't as into it. And like I think that it's a whole different vibe, I think, for like at a big time college game that you just don't get in the NFL. So yeah, no, it was really good football in the NFL, but yeah, it just reminds us all like why we really love college.
That's true. Well, speaking of college, today we're wrapping up kind of our top 5 games of the year for this last season.
Yeah.
And I'll preface this by saying we're doing just the regular season. I think for me personally, like the 2 playoff games, I probably would have had 1 and 2 on my list if I was including those. Would those have been that high for you, or like I assume they would have at least been close for you?
So I was going to rank these as like we're going to kind of give a top 5 of games that we enjoyed watching the most, right?
Sure.
And I got no enjoyment out of watching Georgia and Ohio State play. So like, why would I even have that one on there? That was just like you take your heart pills early. Like you just, man, you buckle in because that's going to be a rough 3.5 hours. But yeah, no, I think this will be fun. The kind of, I guess the thought behind it is games that we were really enjoying kind of even from a neutral perspective, and kind of try to leave obviously, like I enjoy watching a Georgia game for sure, but like just objectively we had some incredible games, regular season games, and yeah, just go into which ones do we enjoy watching the most. Try to somehow get it down to 5, the top 5, which I think this could be difficult.
Yeah, last year when we did this, for my own personal list, I think I had said I need some stakes in the game, like something that matters. This year, I didn't really do that. I just went like, what are the 5 games that I just enjoyed watching the most? None of them including Notre Dame, which usually, I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like when you're watching, usually when your own team is in a tight game that everyone else would call a great game, you're like hyperventilating or living and dying with every play. And sometimes it's not all that much fun to watch your own games. But yeah, I made a long list of like 14 games, and there was a lot that I left off that I would have loved to put on the list, and there's just no way. I mean, there's so many great games in college football. Yeah. Let's dive right into it, Ashton. What's your number 5 game?
Okay, so this is we're gonna come in here with, and this could be a little controversial. I'll just go ahead and say this. This one just made the cut for me at number 5. Mm-hmm. It is LSU 32, Alabama 31 in overtime. The 2-point conversion play just to go ahead and to ice the game. It was incredible. What a play call too. That was Brian Kelly really, endearing himself to the LSU fans. Yeah, that's a culture fit all of a sudden. Suddenly Brian Kelly really fits in if he's beating Alabama. So I think that was really big. It was a momentum shifter. Suddenly, no matter what LSU did the rest of the year, it was still going to be a success simply because you had beaten Alabama.
Right.
And then for Alabama, it showed like cracks in the armor. Like this is real. They could really be in trouble. Bryce Young is still fantastic, but the rest of their team, like we're not sure like where their receivers are at. Like we have some uncertainties about some of the other pieces for an Alabama title run. So I think that was for me at number 5. I loved watching it. Everyone loves to watch Bama lose. Like, we'll just be really honest. It's easy to put a Bama loss in your top 5 because everyone enjoys watching them lose. So I'm maybe kind of chickening out here, taking the easy road out, but LSU beating Bama for me is number 5.
Yeah, I actually did not watch most of the game live. So I don't have it on my list just because I don't have like the memories of the ups and downs in the game and everything that went into it. I
Sure,
think I did watch the ending. I just wasn't able, I can't remember what I was doing. There were a few Saturdays this fall where I wasn't able to quite dive into every game that I wanted to.
sure.
But yeah, obviously that's a great pick. My number five pick is Utah 43, USC 42. Kind of a similar ending, where
Yeah,
you have Utah scoring and then going for two and converting. I love and I kind of like the similarities between our number fives. Like as far as just, I love it when a team goes for two to win the game at the end,
yeah.
especially if they're kind of the underdog. And I don't remember if Utah was actually the underdog, but they kind of were because USC was like the maybe playoff team. Um,
Right,
so yeah, I love when
right.
teams do that.
Yeah, and to your point, like with both of those games, the element of going for two, it just the feeling that you get before it. Now, please, I hope my team never does this. I wouldn't be able to handle this, but it is so awesome from a neutral perspective when it comes down to like one play from the 3 yard line. It's like
Yes.
this. It couldn't be any better. It's absolutely must watch, and really good play calls. I
Hmm.
thought too, like the offensive play calls that these teams had to, yeah, to I think you see it a lot when there's a mobile quarterback. When you have a mobile quarterback and there's always the threat that he could run, it opens up so many other opportunities. So yeah, I think that's a great coaching philosophy from these guys. It's just yeah, let's just go for it. Let's just go win right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is awesome. Love that. So is that back to me?
Yes, sir. Number four.
I'm gonna go with Clemson 51, Wake Forest
Ooh,
45 in double overtime.
yes.
There was 1,006 yards in this game, 1,006 yards combined. What else do you want from me here? Yeah, DJ was fantastic in this game. This
Yeah.
is the game. This is the game where you're sitting there like wondering, like, how good will DJ be next year in Oregon State? Like, it could really,
Yeah.
really work out for him with some good coaching. And
Mhm.
yeah, and ah, Sam Hartman, obviously, yeah, like you'll find out about him next year a lot as well. Like he
Right.
had 6 touchdowns and lost. He had 6 touchdowns and lost the football game. That's tough to do. Great quarterbacks. Those were two phenomenal quarterback performances. And I think what maybe what this might not be on a lot of people's list. I don't know if it made yours or not. We didn't talk about it, but the game was it. Clemson was a playoff team at this point, and
Hmm.
it had those stakes. Like these games for them to make the top five, there needs to be that playoff level or at least conference championship level type of stakes. Where if a team, the winner sets themselves up for everything, and the loser is out, like completely out
Hmm.
in the cold. So yeah, I think that's what we thought this was with Clemson, and it kind of turned out not to be that way, which I think is a reason a lot of people aren't viewing it later on as that premier game. Like it's not going to get
Yeah.
talked about. Kind of gets forgotten. It was also early in the year, but I think just looking back, going back and watching the replays of it, the quarterback play was just unbelievable. It's fantastic offense.
Yeah. I feel like Wake Forest is good for one, at least one of these games every year. A game where both teams are in the 50s or close,
Right.
and Wake Forest is not very good on defense necessarily, but their offense has been
No.
good for several years, and they can hang with a Clemson, and really make it fun and exciting. Yeah, this was one of those games where we saw kind of the good side of Clemson, at least their offense, which did not happen just a ton this year. So I didn't quite have it on my list. Have zero issue with it. I mean, obviously a great game.
Some of them too, I think are where are you able to sit down and like it applies to each one of us personally. Like, were you able to sit down and
Right.
watch this game? Where like this game for me, I watched the whole way through and it was just like this is crazy.
Hmm.
And yeah, because we really did think that Clemson's defense was pretty solid still.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of that was a surprise. And then yeah, both teams kind of yeah, Clemson's season last year was really strange. Like in retrospect, like thinking that of how close they were to a playoff berth, and then you get blown out by Notre Dame, like
Hmm.
hammered by Notre Dame, and then last game of the year you could actually have gotten blown out by Notre Dame, still went to the playoff, but then you lose to South Carolina, who was kind of not great. Like you know what I mean? Like they weren't fantastic. there's a lot to discuss with Clemson this year. Same there was last year too. So Clemson's just kind of that team like you're not really sure where to put them right now.
Apparently, this
But
is our destiny every offseason.
talk about Clemson and Ohio State. We could spend all offseason talking
Yeah.
about those two programs. No, I love this game. It was a lot of fun. I was very invested. I'm excited to see what DJ does next year.
Yeah.
I think going back and watching this game makes you think that DJU in a competent system. Yeah, I like what he can do, especially, he gets to go to the Pac-12. Like, I think Oregon State's good. They're just good. So yeah, I like what I think it was a good move for him. And hopefully it all works out.
All right, my next game, number 4 for me, is Florida State 24, LSU 23. And part of the reason I have it there is just because it was that opening weekend, and we all just love that opening weekend. And this might be a theme kind of in my top 5, where I have several games from kind of the beginning of college football. Not all opening weekend, but like kind of the first part of college football. I did not quite get Northwestern Nebraska on there. But no,
That was week 0.
Right, no. This Florida State LSU game was just one of those games that it just got super drunk in the last couple minutes. Like some of the things that was happening. I need to go back and watch the last 5 minutes again, just because it was that crazy. This was the first game for Brian Kelly at LSU. Kind of the first game for Florida State to sort of announce that they're here. Like, they're actually good now. Not great, not the old days of Florida State, but like they're no longer something to be made fun of in the ACC.
Florida, yes. It was a fantastic game, by the way. Like, it came down to literally just a missed extra point. But you mentioned the last 5 minutes of this game where there was a fumble, and then so Florida State going in from the 1 yard line, they're about to score to go in to completely put the game on ice, go by 2 touchdowns. They fumble the ball, and then LSU goes 99 yards back down the other way to tie it up with just a few seconds left. Yeah, and then to miss the extra point, like, like how is that even possible? But no, it was a great game. You mentioned like the Florida State aspect. Florida State really needed some good vibes coming off. I think even like with the Travis Hunter flip to Dion. I think Florida State had a fairly rough offseason, and they were kind of made fun of. It really got some momentum behind that program. It's what Norvell needed. It was just a fantastic game too. It was a standalone game. I think this was it a Sunday night or a Monday night? It was one of the later
Sunday
games,
night, I think. Yeah.
That was the only game on. And if you were watching, you had to watch that. Like, there was nothing else to watch. So and then to beat LSU, who turned out to be a really good team. Like, these were both just really good football teams. I think it was Florida State needs some more juice like that to start off next season as well. Like, they're going to be playing LSU. These two teams will play again at a neutral site to start off this next year. Florida State will, it'll be interesting. That's going to be a lot of fun. So kind of trying to will next August just to come just to get here just a little sooner. It's a long ways off though. No problem with that at all. That was a fantastic game. For me, number 3 is TCU 29, Baylor 28.
Yes.
And you can say that the game wasn't fantastic. Maybe it didn't have the instant fireworks, and you would be correct. I would agree with you. But you do have to admit that TCU running their field goal unit on while the clock is ticking down, having no timeouts, you're down by 2, you have to attempt a long field goal. You never see that. That's something that you never see. There's always, we have time to spike it. We'll just clock it. We'll call a timeout. We'll do something. TCU had no timeouts, and it was 4th down. They had to kick. Like, there was no other option. So they scramble everyone off, and the kicker comes scrambling on, just ultimate fire drill. And then just to nail it, like, he absolutely nails the field goal to win 29-28 to keep, like, they're not in the playoff without it. Like, they whiff. I don't think they get past a Baylor loss and still get in the playoff. Fantastic game. The ending was electric, and it had the playoff implications that we talked about, like these games need to have. So I was very dialed into this one. It was, again, I hope my team never has to go through any of that, but being able to watch someone else's team go through it, it was a blast. I loved watching it. I hope we see this again. I want to see it more. There's going to be some teams out there that completely fumble the bag when they have to run their field goal unit out there. Like, they
Oh, for
will. They're
sure. Yeah.
gonna run out like 14 guys and they're like trying to snap the ball and no one's sure who's supposed to be on or off. That was very well executed by TCU. Yeah, credit to them. It was a great game. I loved especially the end there.
Yeah, that game just missed my list, but yeah, the ending there, like that might be one of the most iconic endings that we'll remember from this season. Of just
Yeah.
that the kicker not even having time to step off the field goal, just like guessing basically where he's
Right.
supposed to stand and then kicking it.
He had no time, not at all. Like, he just had to step up and just boot it. Like, he was just like, I guess we're going that way with it. Yeah, that was so cool.
All right, my number three. This is going to probably be one of my most controversial picks. I'm going back to week one, but it's not even Saturday. It's earlier than that. On Thursday night of week one, we had Pitt and West Virginia play for the first time in years, the backyard brawl. Pitt beats West Virginia 38-31. Obviously, in retrospect, like, this game meant absolutely nothing, like on the broader spectrum. But this game was so much fun. Like, I just loved watching this game. The fans were just nuts. It was kind of the first real game of the year. And it was a rivalry that should be played more often. These fans absolutely hate each other with a passion. Yeah, we could go into some of the details, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of hate there that I don't think a lot of national fans are aware of in the backyard brawl. And I just, yeah, not that it had any major stakes or anything. It was just an incredible welcome to week one of college football for me, and I loved every second of it.
I think I lost money on that game. So yeah, it did not make my top 5, obviously. Some of those earlier games you forget about. You remember how loaded week one was going into it? Because, we don't really view it that way anymore now because Georgia absolutely thumped Oregon. But that was a premier matchup. Florida and Utah was an epic game. I mean, that could be on anyone's top 5. You already mentioned the LSU Florida LSU Florida State. That was the same weekend. That first weekend was loaded. Like, there were so many good games. Yeah, yeah. So I guess maybe it's because, like, Georgia just absolutely hammered Oregon, and so it's like we just have like a different view of it. It's like, that wasn't, maybe that's not what we thought. We were hoping for something else. Going back through it, man, there's so many games here. I don't know how we turn this down to 5. Do you have okay? I only have 2 slots left, and this is a problem. There's like 10 games that I could put. Yeah, you could easily swap any of these out there. For me, the one I enjoyed watching at 2 is Ohio State, Michigan. And it's because it was a close game for most of it. The implications were huge. The narratives that shifted in that game, I think, were huge. Had Ohio State come out and beat Michigan, we view Ryan Day a lot differently. I think we view Harbaugh a lot differently. They both ended up making the playoff. Like, I get it. Like, so maybe, at the time, we didn't know that. We thought that this was a win or go home type. Like, this was a playoff game. At the time, we viewed that as a playoff game. It had so much. There was so much riding on it at the time, and for Michigan to go in there and win, it was a very well played game. Michigan played very, very well. I don't know where that Michigan team was against TCU just a couple of weeks later. I will never understand that. I won't. But that was a fantastic game. Michigan pulls away. The final score wasn't indicative of how close that game was. It was close until late. Michigan gets some long runs to kind of pull away. But that's going to be number 2 for me. I'm pretty sure we'll both have the same number 1. I feel almost positive that we will. But yeah, I mean, what a great game. Like the narratives, you don't get that in the NFL. Like, so you don't have those games where for 60 minutes, after 60 minutes, you might think of someone entirely differently. Like, completely differently. Like, the stakes are just so high. Whereas, in a lot of leagues, you can lose. I will lose a couple of games. Not a big deal. We'll be fine.
The Chiefs lost to the Colts this year,
and it didn't matter. Right? It didn't matter.
Exactly.
Ohio State fans were devastated by that loss. Absolutely devastated, and for a whole year, you have zero bragging rights at all. So it meant so much. It sets up an even better matchup this next year. For Ohio State and Michigan. That's what this is about, man. It's about rivalries. It's about these grudge matches. I love what that like. This sport really brings out the best kind of in these head-on-head rivalries, like the coaches, like the styles of play. I think that's awesome. I think we had all of it in that Ohio State Michigan game.
Yeah, don't hate that at all. Didn't make my list, but a great game. Probably, yeah, for a regular season game, probably the biggest stakes that we could imagine going into it.
Right.
My number two, again, sticking with my theme of early season games that really meant nothing in the big picture, but were just extremely fun. North Carolina 63, App State 61. I don't think I've ever seen an ending quite like this game, where North Carolina, so App State was behind, scored late to get close, onside kick. North Carolina returns the onside kick for a touchdown when all they had to do was just kneel and the game was over. But they return it for a touchdown. App State goes down and scores a touchdown with so the North Carolina touchdown was like 30 seconds left or something. So App State gets the ball back because North Carolina had to kick off. They go down and score a touchdown to get within two, had to go for two, couldn't convert. But what I just said is like a tiny part of that game. I think App State scored like 40 points or something in that fourth quarter. Like it was just like, if you want to see two offenses that are just so incredibly dialed in that there's nothing you can do,
right?
That was the game right there. And it gets bonus points for just the way it ended and just the ridiculousness, like the crazy, like it was the type of game you just don't see. And two, probably too high, but I just really enjoyed it.
App State put up 40 points in that fourth quarter. 40 on the nose. Yeah. North Carolina put up 22, but they almost got doubled. Drake May, yeah, fantastic. You remember Chase Bryce, the Clemson backup in that game? He threw for 6 tutties in that one for App State. That's incredible. When you have a guy that's like a backup at a large program, goes to a school that you don't really think about. Like App State's a good football program, but most people aren't going to be like, that's not really what they're going to be watching. And they go there and really do well. I think that's really awesome. Like, I think that's really cool that, like you realize that sometimes the just because a guy's not playing at a huge university, he's still really, really good. And he'll get a shot somewhere else and make a name for himself. I thought that was kind of neat. 63-61 is a basketball score. Like we can just all agree that's a college basketball score. Okay. Number one.
This has got to be obvious, right?
It's very obvious for both of us. This was the game I was most dialed into all year. I think by a long shot. It's Tennessee 52, Alabama 49. For all of the reasons that you probably already know, just go look up pictures. The aftermath.
Yeah.
That on the field was incredible. There was an interview that I listened to of like the groundskeeper who had to come the next day and like clean up. He said he spent like they spent days cleaning off like cigars. Yeah, clothes were left there. He said like thousands of dollars in sunglasses that were like there. The goalposts were obviously gone. They literally carried them out of the stadium and threw the goalposts into the river, into the bottom of the Tennessee River. I don't really know why they did that. It's some tradition or something, maybe. They carried him out. The videos of it are legendary, of a guy literally riding the goalpost out up on the shoulders. Yeah, there's like, it's super
Fans
neat.
were tearing up turf.
Oh, yeah, and sold it and made money.
Yeah.
Made lots of money from selling the turf. The Tennessee, the Volunteers it's a fan base that's starved for that. Like they needed that so bad. It's a rivalry and we forget about it. Tennessee, Alabama used to be a rivalry, and Alabama has absolutely owned them. This to win, especially on a last-second field goal, and the way that they did, where the offense was clicking really for both teams. The performances from both quarterbacks in this game was fantastic. And for Tennessee to win the way they did, it meant so much for that, like just that fan base and the energy. I would have loved to have been in the stadium that day. It would have been awesome. Georgia's going up there next year. I really hope that doesn't happen to us. Like that really could happen. Yeah, it looked awesome. It looked like so much fun. Like that's kind of what I took away from it is I would love to be there. I would love to be a Tennessee fan there. That has to mean so much. Yeah, and we're not kind of even skipping the game part. We're just kind of going right to the aftermath. It was epic. I'm sure it's your number one. You go
It
for it.
is, yes. Yeah, Jalen Hyatt, 5 touchdowns in that game. Just,
Yeah.
I think we all going into that week thought that Tennessee would be able to score points. Um, but I don't think we thought they would be able to score that many points. Yeah, I think most
Yeah.
people probably thought that if they were going to beat Alabama, it was going to be like 34-31 or something. But 52-49, that was just epic football. Just epic football. Everything you said, all of that. Wasn't much of a debate for me. That had to be number one.
I think the quarterback performances again it's kind of maybe a theme in a lot of these games when you get two quarterbacks that are both playing well and they're
Mm-hmm.
going against each other and it's like duel like you get the ball now you get the ball and now it's your turn and it was Bryce Young versus Hendon Hooker. Bryce Young was unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
he had 455 yards passing. It was incredible. The performance that he had. It's why he needs to be the number one pick in this year's draft. Like games like that are why. It's because he didn't have great receivers in that game. He really didn't. The receivers that Bryce he was fitting the ball in very very tight windows to tight ends or to a slot receiver who doesn't have much separation. He was fitting the ball into very small windows. The guy the It's very very difficult to sack Bryce Young. I think we forget about how
Yeah.
hard it is. That guy is super elusive. He was fantastic. I think it's why he made this game what it was. Hendon Hooker was fantastic. You mentioned that. Jalen Hyatt, all the touchdowns, great receiver.
Mm-hmm.
That back and forth for me is what really kind of put it. Yeah, it puts it into it was the best game I saw in a couple of years. So it puts that game into its own stratosphere. Like it gets its own billing. I'm sorry if you missed it. There's got to be someone out there who didn't watch this game. Maybe you're a college football fan. It's fantastic. It's everything college football should be about. I would love to, be able to watch a couple of more of these next year.
Of course. Okay, so that's our 5 games each. Our favorite games of the year.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of illustrate the way that game separated itself, we both had that game at number one, and we actually didn't agree on any of the rest of our top 5. And I was totally fine with all of your picks, but yeah, you just have to pick other games.
Yeah. Do you have any honorable mentions, like almost ones that made the list?
Yeah. So of the ones that you did not mention, because I liked a lot of yours that you mentioned, the Egg Bowl, always a great rivalry. Mississippi State beat Ole Miss 24-22.
Yeah.
Another rivalry, the Civil War. Oregon State beat Oregon 38-34.
That was a great game. Yeah.
Yes, USC beat UCLA 48-45. Just another like bananas offenses couldn't be stopped type of game. What about you?
The Florida Utah game in week 1 was really really good. Came down to the last second. Yeah, Utah's driving. Florida didn't end up being great, but Utah was really really good. Like that was a big time win for Florida. I think Oregon, you remember they played UCLA? UCLA at that point they were really running the ball very well. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was really slinging it. That was a fantastic game. It was in Eugene. Ended up kind of being a blowout, but it felt like it had it was so close to being epic, and it wasn't. Like it's one of those that like was almost epic, and it missed out kind of because of the way that UCLA faltered down the stretch. Another one that Oregon played was against Washington. I don't know if you mentioned that one. Oregon Washington. That was a really really good game. Oregon had a lot of chances to win that one. So there was some of those. I don't know if you could, if you want to really go down. I saw someone mention it was it. Okay, so Michigan played Illinois, and that it was a really good game with a lot of stakes, but it was absolutely terrible. And you could actually kind of apply that to any game that Iowa played literally all year.
Sure.
So like there are some of those games like are they the sickos? Like you're kind of a sicko if you really enjoy that type of game. But some of us do. There are some people out there that really enjoy 6-3 or something like that. So there's it doesn't just have to be a lot of points. But I just think that's interesting. Like, do you enjoy? Is it about the quarterback play? Like, what makes a game in a matchup elite? Like for you, like I think it differs from person to person.
I think part of it is like are the teams really good? And I say that knowing that not all of my list matched that, but I'm talking more of games that I'm excited to go into. Like when you have two teams that are really good, not necessarily like they don't have to be like top five necessarily, but like two teams that are at the very least good, and yeah, good quarterback play. When you have two quarterbacks going back and forth, just feeling like they can do whatever they want and are just in complete control of the game, I enjoy watching that personally. Maybe that makes me pretty basic, but I do like good quarterback play.
The like you remember, okay, so and this was week one. Iowa played South Dakota State. That was 7-3,
Yeah,
and there was not a touchdown scored. Iowa got their 7 points from a field goal and two safeties. So like you can have games like that where it's this is a fantastic game. I don't know that you can. Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can go. You can go
if it's two teams that are like really good defensively, then I can appreciate it as long as it's low scoring because of the defenses, not because the offenses just suck. Like if the offenses just suck, I'm just not as impressed by the great defensive performances.
We can agree though that Illinois got absolutely robbed against Michigan. Like going back to
Oh
that game.
yeah.
Like okay, we have a little bit of time and this is the off season, so let's just do this just for a little bit. Is there an agenda for referees? Because there's a lot of talk about this. If you looked into like the NFL from last night, there's absolutely horrible calls. And as someone who like being a ref is hard. Like
Yeah.
it's very difficult. These guys, it's very, very hard. But it is uncanny how certain teams get every single call. Every single one. Alabama got every single call for eternity. They did. And it's not really that way anymore. It kind of quit. But man, for about 10 years there, you had to beat Alabama by 14 points to win by 3. Does that make sense? Like you had to outplay them by 2 scores and you might win by a field goal. Like it's kind of how it felt. Do you think that there is something to that? Because there were some stakes in the Illinois-Michigan game with the Big Ten kind of needed that to set up the Michigan-Ohio State game the next week. They really did. They needed that. What do you think?
I like that it's kind of a subjective type of question. Like there's not a lot of ways you can answer the question without wildly speculating. And I kind of like that. So let me wildly speculate a little bit.
Okay, let's go.
I do think there are situations where refereeing crews kind of know what their bosses would like. I don't think I do not think that you have like the Big Ten league office
Sure.
sending an email to the refs and say, "Hey guys, it would be really nice if Michigan would win this week." Like I don't think that actually happens, but I think
Yeah.
refs kind of know, like, it's probably, and I think this is probably ref to ref. Like I have no doubt there are plenty of refs out there that would never like purposely make a questionable call like that could alter the outcome of a game. I do think that refs are human. I do remember 10 or 15 years ago, ESPN the magazine, rest in peace, was they did kind of an in-depth study on home field advantage. What what is the actual advantage from home field advantage? What factors in the most to give teams an edge? Because we know teams do have an edge at home. Like why
Sure.
is that?
Sure.
And they did a lot of research, looked into a bunch of different things, and kind of what they came up with was the number one thing is reffing. And a lot of it is like when there's a 50-50 call and you have 80,000 people that are just ready to get mad at you if you make the wrong call. Like, yeah, you might not even consciously make that decision, but unconsciously, that 50-50 call might turn into 60-40. What do you think?
None of that really explains what we saw and what we see in the NFL though. Like the coincidences keep piling up. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. That's not me. I'm not the tinfoil hat guy. I don't do that. And if it's uncanny. We'll just say that. We'll just leave it at that. It's uncanny how Illinois is not getting that call. Like in no world will Illinois get that call. But if Illinois was undefeated, it feels like they get that call almost every time. You know what I'm saying? Like why is it okay? Because I think there's so much, especially in college, there's so much focused on the ratings and how does our conference match up to this conference? You know what I'm saying? And can we get multiple teams into the playoff? And can we get this extra money? There's money attached to it. Like there was actual dollars at stake for the Big Ten if Michigan won that football game.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. So like I would be furious if that would happen to me. Like absolutely livid. And yeah, like I don't know. I hate going there, but I'm not going to call you crazy if you do think there's a conspiracy. There's players are in the NFL. Players are going there right now, like today and yesterday with what happened in the Chiefs Bengals game with the extra down that was given and everything. Like players are absolutely buying into some of this stuff. I don't know. It's the sanctity of our sport. We have to be careful. Like you want to believe in the structure of it all, but man, that's ridiculous. Home field advantage, I think, has more to do with the crowd. I understand what your point about reffing. Home field, I think, has a lot to do with, and I don't think it's talked about maybe enough, but the advantage that you have when a defensive line can just tee off and come after you because you have to go silent count. You can't, they have no fear of being drawn offside. They know that you have one opportunity. You're going to go make a motion and then you're going to snap the ball. And the defensive linemen are flying off the ball because you have no choice. And when you're at home, you get to quiet everything down. You have different cadence. You can try to draw them offside. They have to be more cautious. They're not going to get that extra little half second of snap. Like for me, that's probably a bigger deal maybe than the reffing as far as just like a home field advantage. But yeah, no, I do see absolutely both sides of it. I'm not going to call anyone crazy after what some of the stuff we've seen this past year, just kind of in football across the board. It does seem a little suspicious.
I'll say this, like, I do think, like, if you are the Big Ten or the NFL, you have to be pretty careful about some of this stuff. Like, you can, I think if you have some, if you make a few short-term gain calls, like we want the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year, that's a short-term outlook. If the common fan starts to believe that your sport is rigged, suddenly you're WWE and no one wants to watch you, or very few people, or fewer people, I should say. So, like,
there you go.
In the long run, you're better off protecting the sanctity of the sport. And for that reason, like, I do think that these leagues are smart enough not to really rig a lot. I do think that there's probably still kind of the understood, like, no, like I said before, you're not gonna email the head ref and say, hey, we want Michigan to win this week. But if you're the head ref, you kind of know that it'd be sort of nice if Michigan would win this week. Does that make sense? Like, I don't think it's like rigged ever. But I also, well, yeah, the NBA had a few refs going rogue. Yeah, I think if you told me there was a few refs in football going rogue, I would believe that a lot more than I would believe the Big Ten was telling the refs that they want Michigan to win. Like, to me, that feels like that would just be reckless. Like, that would damage the long-term viability of your product.
I do think something that these conferences and even the NFL could do to dispel this. Okay, so the SEC crew that called the Michigan and TCU game, right? Remember, and the guy was down at the one, but was he in? And they overturned the call, and it was very much a 50-50 call. There was a number of calls, and they kind of all went they all went TCU's way. That was an SEC crew that I had watched a lot this past year. I watched a lot of SEC football. That was not a very good SEC crew. The SEC fans didn't think so. Like, that was not our best crew. A lot of these refs are part-time guys. Like, you do need, the product is so expensive and so valuable. Live sports are what drives ratings. Like, there's not much else that really drives ratings on, like, especially on cable. Like, they need to do a better job at being beyond reproach. Like, these guys need to be I mean, this is their job, 365 days a year. This is what they do. They're absolute professionals, highly paid. It needs to be much more competitive. I think it needs to be more open. Like the referees need to have some accountability after games that like we missed call. Like they need to have a press conference as well for the referees. They just get to go away. You never have to hear about them again. There needs to be more accountability for sure. And I think the leagues could do a better job by stepping up, paying more, making it a more making it actual profession. Like this is like you're a full-time employee of the SEC, where a lot of these guys are part-time guys, which is shocking to learn. Like when you actually find out they have other jobs. So it needs to be much better refed, I believe, across the board. Just the whole sport does. So it's I know we kind of got off in the weeds on that, but it affects how you watch so much, especially when you start to believe that like, is that legitimate? Like, is this is rigged? Because in the case of Michigan, Illinois, that was fantastic game. It's like, woof, that's rough, man.
The point you made though, I think is very key. Like I do think a lot of the bad reffing we see is just incompetence. Like and I agree. Like I think that all these leagues should do a better job of incentivizing people to become refs. And the way you do that is with money. I mean, okay, so I play slow pitch softball in a city league here in Colorado, and I've considered already like maybe getting my umpire's license and umping a few games a week, couple extra bucks, you know. But then I see the way just your average Joe who goes to work 45 hours a week and then wants to play some softball on a Wednesday night goes and just berates the ump. Like, do I really want that to happen to me for $20 a game? Like,
sure.
And so obviously that's an extremely small scale, but it holds true like across sports, because it feels like more and more and more athletes will just lay into umps and refs of any kind. And who wants to expose themselves to that level of abuse if you're not being paid properly for it?
No, and that's fair, but like it's so easily solved. Like it really is. The SEC and the Big Ten are not short of money. They make bundles of it. They do. They have all kinds of money, and they're willing to spend it on almost anything else. Why not spend and go get the very best officials, make it be the best refereed conference, and have a competition for it. Like open it up and actually grade these guys and critique these guys, but then also like pay them. Like it should be a very highly paid position, because it actually affects how you watch the game. Like it affects the actual viewer at home. So poor refereeing it sucks. It really does suck to sit there and watch it, especially when he's made a couple of bad calls already. And it's like are we really going to do this again? Like, this is not, you start to really it kind of messes with how you watch the game. So I think it's easily solved, or at least you could take steps to improve. I think it's easily improved, especially if these guys are part-timers. It feels like that's a no-brainer. Like, go make this an actual position, well paid, well compensated, and train 365 days. You're training, you're doing, this is what you do. So I think it's something that needs to be looked into more, because there's no doubt that it's an issue across all of the game, all of football.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's kind of wrap this up here pretty quickly. Just rapid fire before we wrap this up completely.
Okay.
So Jim Harbaugh apparently met with the Broncos again. I don't know what's going on there. I don't even know if it's worth talking about. Like, I guess we'll see. I heard an idea that the Broncos are trying to get some leverage with Sean Payton. I don't know. So it's the story for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan that just never seems to quite go away, and it probably won't until he signs a massive extension with a massive buyout or goes to the NFL, whichever comes first.
I don't even know what to say. I guess that means that we can't do our coaches draft until we know. So we'll have to wait. The coaches draft episode, which will be coming here this offseason. It's one of our favorite episodes to do all year. We love it. Yes. We're gonna have to wait on that because he affects that so much. By the way, there's gonna be a lot of movement. Like, just kind of looking forward to the coaches draft. We're gonna have a freaking good time this year in the coaches draft. That's gonna be we need to bring up past drafts. This will be our 4th annual coaches draft.
Yes. That's
awesome, dude. We've been doing this for a little while now. So this is going to be fun, because we should even compare, see how coaches stocks have gone up and down. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Another piece of news, feel free to comment on this if you want. You also can not if you want. Stetson Bennett was arrested for public intoxication.
In Dallas.
in Dallas, Texas, of all places, where TCU is. Yeah. So
Oh.
I guess he's training for the NFL draft, or maybe I don't know. Is he training on is there like a salesman convention there or something?
There's an insurance convention in Dallas, and that's where he had to go. Is sell some life insurance or something. I am forever grateful for what Stetson Bennett did for the Georgia program. I am. He is 25 years old, and he is. I don't know what he's doing. Like, we'll just go ahead and say that. I have zero clue. He turned down his Senior Bowl invite. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It made no sense to me. I don't have much more to comment other than that. So let's just say he gets to do whatever he wants. He's no longer in the Georgia program. I'm forever grateful. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Well, that sounds pretty harsh. Anyway,
yeah, it does. That's tough.
Speaking of quarterbacks who inexplicably turned down the Senior Bowl, Will Levis.
Oh no.
So as you know, this is a weekly Will Levis update.
We do this every time.
As you know, I'm a Colts fan.
I know.
Today the Colts did their weekly Monday mock draft Monday, I guess, where they post a couple mock drafts on their Instagram and just like sharing what some different mock drafts out there are sharing. And like today, there was one had them drafting Bryce Young, one had them drafting the Georgia corner in the second round,
Keely Ringo,
Ringo, and then one Will Levis, drafting Will Levis. And you go to the comments, and some of the comments were calling for Bryce Young, some of the comments were calling for C.J. Stroud. 90% of the comments were saying absolutely not Will Levis. I have never seen the Colts fan base united so completely. So there's a lot going on with the Colts this offseason. Jeff Saturday is still in the running to become their permanent head coach.
Okay.
Let's just say that there's a non-zero chance that the Colts hire Jeff Saturday, trade up to number 1, and draft Will Levis. If that combination of three things happens, I don't even know what to say. Like, at that point, I will be as depressed an NFL fan as I could ever possibly be, and that's and I do care about the NFL, just not to the same extent as college football. Thankfully,
he's got good size.
I've heard that. Yeah,
decent arm. He can make all the throws. Vince, he's kind of mobile. I don't know what else you're looking for me here. He's decent against the blitz, and he throws into small windows. I'm trying to help you here.
Yeah,
I will say I will talk myself into Will Levis before
you won't.
I'm going to. I'm going to talk myself into Will Levis before then, and we're going to have a battle where you're on one side and I'm on the other, and I'm going to try to convince you of Will Levis. I think it's happening. The only thing better than drafting Will Levis at 4 is trading up to 1 to draft Will Levis. That's awesome, because then that way, if you do bomb and you're trying to get the number 1 pick next year, you can't because you traded away when you drafted up. So it's coming up aces for Indianapolis right now.
Oh, I hope so bad this doesn't happen. Anyway, we need to stop talking about Will Levis and the Colts for a little while. But thanks everybody for listening. Have a great week, and God bless you all. Please.